A lot of times when I talk about advice or tips or reviews and stuff like that, I am considering people who are on a budget, because I'm on a budget. For people who are starting a business up, or people who are just brand new to the digital nomad life like I am, who still need a little financial breathing room to get their businesses up and running. Those are my people who I have in mind. Hey guys, welcome back to Live, Love, Life, and Travel. This is your girl Shamika, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. And just to let you know that I upload on the daily. I upload travel videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and I upload free talk videos all the other days in between. And I talk about love, I talk about life, I talk about things that I'm passionate about, I talk about health, mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally, and things that I think you guys should know. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe. And if you want to hear more about tips and advice when it comes to travel, or just all things travel, please hit that subscribe button. So now I decided to do a update video when it comes to finding an apartment in Chiang Mai. So I uploaded a video like over a year ago, about finding an apartment in Chiang Mai, and I get so many emails and so many questions about finding an apartment in Chiang Mai, people who are thinking about coming down here, that I thought I probably should do another video, an update video. I don't know what I said in that video a year ago. I don't want to watch it because I'm pretty sure it's really cringy, so I just thought I would do an update video because I have learned a lot since then. So let's get started. So, my number one advice, honestly, is to give yourself enough time when you get down here. I do recommend people doing their research before they come down here. Like, go on blogs, go online, go on forums, ask around, look up rental places that are in Chiang Mai before you come over here. Drop some places down that you're interested in. Figure out your budget, figure out, what the general consistent prices are before you come down here, what the deposits are and stuff like that. I do recommend that. But I did that. Before I came down here, I did all my research. I had a long list of places, of all the places I wanted to go. I had narrowed it down. I thought I was prepared. And when I came down here, it just did not work out that way. The majority of the places that I was going to look at, the number had either changed, or the business was not there anymore, they shut down, or the people who worked there didn't speak a lick of English. Or they just didn't pick up the phone, or whatever. It just did not work out. And so as much as I prepared as I thought I was, it didn't. What ended up happening is only one place actually returned my phone calls, and because I didn't give myself enough time to look, I was sort of in a rush or in a panic. I was on a budget, so I didn't want to spend all my money in this hotel that I was splitting with these girls that I had just met on the taxi. And so I just said yes. I just took it, and I really, really wish someone had told me not to do that and just to take my time and sit back and relax about it, because it ended up being a bad apartment. The apartment itself was just really aesthetically nice. It was probably aesthetic or looks wise, it was probably one of the nice apartments that I actually lived in. But the landlord sucked. She was a landlord from hell. It was way out of town, which I didn't mind that much, eventually. I kind of like being so immersed in Thai culture, but still living way out of town that quickly, it was a little bit of a culture shock, even though I had been to Thailand before. She just ended up being a nightmare, and just overcharging me for everything. Every other week was something else she was trying to get money out of me for. She seemed like she was always shaking my pockets, always had me upside down, trying to see what else I can give her. And so give yourself enough time when you get down here. I would suggest do your research, do that. I really do think that's important. But when you get down here, find a place to rent for 5 to 10 days, or 5 to a week. Whether it's a really cheap hostel, if you're on a budget, you can stay in a hostel, or if you're coming with someone else, you can, or if not, you can stay in a hotel or a guest house or an Airbnb, something like that. But give yourself enough time to look, so you're not panicked, so you're not rushed, so you're not just picking the first place you fall in love with when you get down here, and then end up realizing that you were just paying way too much. And this is for people who are on a budget. Honestly, if you don't really care about money, if you're just coming down here, that's not an issue, then, picking the first place is fine. But I'm talking about people who do want to find a place that is in their price range. Number 2, my second piece of advice is to make sure that you are not being overcharged for your deposit, because there's a lot of places down here, especially near Neiman's, that cater to a lot of expats and foreigners, who will tell you that you have to pay 3 months, 6 months, or just a really large deposit up front. And a lot of them will tell you like that's completely normal. You're not going to find any place that's not going to charge you that much. This is how it's done everywhere. And so you'll be like, okay, like that makes sense, I guess. And you will end up like paying way too much. And a lot of the places like I prefer apartments that's not these large sort of, I wouldn't say corporate apartments, but these big, large complexes. I prefer smaller apartments, because the larger ones seem like they make you sign a contract, and you have to sign, like, either pay like 3 to 6 months deposit or a really large deposit. And so when you're new to Thailand, you just think that is normal. But honestly, there's so many places that do first to last month rent, but they're usually the apartments that's smaller owned, like family owned. They're not usually the big one. And so you can find smaller apartments that you don't have to sign a contract. And if you do sign a contract and you leave before your contract's over, yes, that's totally normal for you not to get your deposit back. But I've heard a lot of these bigger complexes do not return your deposit, even if you do stay the whole contract. But if you do sign a contract to these larger apartments, you do usually get a better deal when it comes to monthly rent. So it's a give and take, it's a pros and cons there. But still, like, there is definitely a possibility to find apartments that only say first to last month rent. You do not necessarily have to pay a large amount rent, or 3 months or 6 months rent. Or I went to one place that was like, it was 4,000 a month, 4,000 baht a month, which is a bit over $100, and he was like, the deposit is like 10,500, like some random number. It didn't even make sense. It wasn't even first to last month rent. So just like, okay, they're just overcharging you deposit. And part of it is their fear that you're going to leave, you're not going to stay, and then they'll be like out of a tenant and no one's paying rent. I get that, but I do think it's a little bit scamish, because I heard that some people do not get their deposits back. So that's it. Make sure you're not getting overly charged for the deposit, unless you do not care. Another thing some people seem to overcharge you for, like my first landlord, was utilities. I believe my utilities in my next one was like 0.7 baht a unit or something like that, and the place I had before was like 12 baht a unit or 14 baht a unit. Like, she was way overcharging me. And my friend, who actually has lived here for years, said that it's actually illegal for apartment complexes to overcharge you more than they're being charged from the utility company. He actually went down to the utility company, asked them, can landlords charge you more than they're being charged? And they said no, that's actually against the law. Those are against the rules. They should only charge you for the utilities that they are paying. The same amount that they are paying, that's how much they should be charging you. So he actually took a letter to his landlord, and now he is paying the exact amount that the utilities cost, so he's not paying anything over. Now, some people might say, I don't really want to go that far. Personally, I do not mind paying a couple of baht more. But when they're going too far and it's like really beefing up your utility bill, like, that's too much. So just make sure that you're not getting overcharged for utilities. Like, when you're looking around, ask every place you're looking at, and ask them how much are utilities, if they're not included, and try to get a general consensus of what the utilities are. And so if someone, like, if everyone's saying it's 9 baht per unit and you go to a place and saying like it's 14 baht a unit, you probably know that person is overcharging you with utilities, if you care about that. Number 3, my third piece of advice is to make sure that there's no hidden fees. The first place I lived at, there were so many fucking hidden fees. Like, every other week it was something new. Like, some places they will have like cleaning service, they will have like people to change your sheet or something like that, and they'll charge you for those things without telling you that that's what's included in the package. Now, those things are nice. If you don't mind having a cleaning service or your sheets changed, it's fine. But a lot of times they won't tell you about that, and they don't give you the option to opt out of that. Or they will tell you that you don't have an option to opt out of it, and you have to pay this price anyway, no matter what. And just like extra things, like charging you for, like, if you have a fitness center on the floor, or a pool, or parking, or something like that, something you may not even be using, they may be tacking onto your monthly bill and not telling you that when you moved in. So just make sure there's no hidden fees. Make sure if there are extra things, if you don't want those things, if you have the option to opt out of those things, so you don't have to pay for something that you don't want, you don't need, or you're not using. People that are on a budget who don't need all those things, who are just coming out here and they're just starting off. If you're worried about not meeting other expats, if you're worried about not meeting other foreigners, and you might be scared that you might be a little isolated, I would suggest moving to Neiman's. And I think the correct pronunciation is Neiman, but everyone just calls it Neiman's. And I would sort of say it's the equivalent of like Santa Monica in Los Angeles, and that's the only reason I lived in Los Angeles pretty much my whole adult life, so that's the only thing I can really compare it to. I wouldn't say it's like the Beverly Hills, because it's not that upper, but it's like the middle upper class area of Chiang Mai. It's like a lot of the middle class, upper class, like Thai people live there, a lot of young hipster Thai people live there, and a lot of foreigners live there. That's pretty much where most of the foreigners end up sort of settling, is Neiman's, because Neiman's is more westernized, but it's still like a bit of Thai there. So the apartments are a lot more westernized. You have your dishwashers and all your little food appliances and stuff like that. So if that is something that you feel like you want when you move down here, you don't want to leave the comforts of your home and you want to kind of move into an apartment that is very American, if you want to be around a lot of other expats, I would say move to Neiman's. You're going to meet a lot of other digital nomads. If you're coming down here and you want to start a business online and you want to bounce off ideas from people and you want to get some advice from people, Neiman's is a really good place because there's a lot of co-working spaces, which is like where you go and you just work on your computer with it, and everyone around you is doing the same thing. So it's really easy to learn stuff from other people, bounce off ideas, and see what everybody else is doing. And if you're like a family and you want to meet other families with kids and stuff like that, Neiman's is the place to be, because most likely the apartment that you're going to be moving into is going to be like almost all foreigners or expats, and mostly foreigners. So you're going to run into other people. The cafes, the stores, the restaurants are going to be packed with other expats or foreigners. Yeah, so you're going to eventually bump into other people. So if that's something that is a concern of yours, I would say move to Neiman's. Now, if you're in a budget, Neiman's is probably not the place you want to move to, but if you have a bit more to spend, let's say, okay, for example, so my apartment that was literally just a few minutes walk from Neiman's was only $80 US. Now, if that same apartment was right on Neiman's, it would have been probably $200 US. You know what I mean? So if 200 baht is not a big deal, and it is fairly cheap compared to Western countries, then yeah, go on Neiman's. But I'm just saying, like, if you're on a budget, it's probably not where you want to go. If you want to look at the apartment that I had, you know, you can click on the link and look at that apartment. It's a really good apartment, big studio, fully furnished, security door with security key, Wi-Fi, big windows, right next to Neiman's, and then even the neighborhood, everything you can want and need is like right there. Cafes, shops, restaurants. You have a mixture of Western and Thai. So I think it's a really good option. But the downside to her is that she gets full really quickly. She has two apartments, one that's $80 a month and one is $100 a month, excluding utilities. And utilities maybe come up to like maybe $20. If you are the opposite of that, if you're like, look, I don't want to be around any foreigners, I don't want to be around any other expats, so anybody from the Western country, I want to be super immersed in Thai culture and I'm on a budget or whatever, move outside of the city. Move way outside of the city, like past the train station, more into a province area, because they have pricey and they have cheap apartments way outside of the city, but it will be easier for you to find something that's a bit more cheaper. It's going to be like a lot more Thai, and not only will your place be cheaper, everything else will be cheaper, like your groceries and your gas and restaurants and all that stuff, because they're not catering to tourists, they're catering to the locals there. And so the prices are all Thai prices. Even like the taxis, like I pay minimum 40 baht for a taxi around town here, and where I used to stay outside of town, I pay 5 baht. 40 to 5. That's how the difference is. So they're not catering to tourists. So if you're like, look, I don't care about tourists, I just want to be in Thailand, I would suggest moving outside of the city center. Not only will your rent possibly be cheaper, but everything else will be cheaper too. Moving to the city center, to Old Town, there's a mixture of expensive and a mixture of cheap. So just look around. There's a lot of guest houses that will rent out for a month, and the good thing with guest houses is that you don't have to pay the deposit and you don't have to pay utilities. So so don't be scared to go into guest houses, which is kind of like just hotels, and say, hey, if I stay here for a month, can you knock off this much money, or can you make me a deal? And most likely, if you're staying here for a long term, they will give you a deal. And again, you don't have to pay a deposit or rent. You'll more likely find that in Old Town or the city center, less likely outside or near Neiman's. But if you don't like tourists, if you don't like a lot of people around you, that's the downside, especially high season. There's going to be a lot of tourists everywhere, and everything else is going to be a little bit more expensive, especially during high season, because they're catering to the tourists, the restaurants, the food, the stores, and stuff like that. But it's a really good chance that you can find a guest house to stay where you don't have to pay your deposit and you don't have to pay utilities. So pros and cons, pros and cons. So that's it, guys. That's my 4 tips. The 5th one is actually just reiterating what I said in the beginning, is to give yourself enough time to look and not to get overly excited. And again, this is for people who are on a budget. A lot of times when I talk about advice or tips or reviews and stuff like that, I am considering people who are on a budget, because I'm on a budget. I'm for people who are starting a business up, for people who are just brand new to the digital nomad life like I am, who still need a little financial breathing room to get their businesses up and running. Those are my people who I have in mind. I think what people do, and when they get down here, is they get really excited because you feel like all of a sudden you have all this money, because it's such the exchange rate, especially from US to baht or pounds to baht, is such a big difference that you do get excited and you feel like you have all this money. And then you go look at an apartment that's a really nice apartment, and you compare that apartment to what the price would be if you were back at home. So you're like, oh my gosh, this apartment's only $500-$600. This apartment would be $1,000 back where I live, so this must be a great deal. Instead of comparing the apartments to Thai apartments, they compare the apartments to an apartment that would be in their home. So they get really excited, and they do think $500-$600 is the cheapest you can get because the Thai landlord told them that or something like that. But it's not true. You can find apartments way cheaper. So like I said, don't get so excited. Look around, take your time, breathe, concentrate, focus. Okay, that's it, guys. That's all my advice about moving or looking for an apartment in Chiang Mai. Again, do your research before you get here, but give yourself enough breathing rooms and take your time to look for the right apartment that's a good choice for you, aesthetic-wise, location-wise, and price-wise. 2, make sure you're not getting overly priced or they're overly charged for a deposit. You can find apartments that's first and last month rent. And a lot of places, especially the bigger complexes, especially their Neiman's, will charge you 3 to 6 month rents or just an outrageous amount, and they will make you or want you to sign a contract. So that's up to you. The smaller apartments are less likely to do that. The smaller apartment complexes will more likely give you first and last month rent, and they wouldn't require you to sign a contract. Number 3, make sure you're not getting overcharged for utilities. Just compare the utility bills, because I'm not exactly sure what the utilities is anymore because I stay in a guest house right now. But just when you're looking around, try to get a general consistent of what the utility prices are. So if one person's way off, you know that they are overcharging you. Technically, they're not supposed to charge you more than what they're getting charged. If you're looking for an apartment that you want to be around a bunch of other expats, a bunch of other digital nomads, or a bunch of families who are already living here, Neiman's is the place that you want to live. That's a good choice for you. Just know that it's going to cost more. If you want to live outside of town, if you don't want to be around any foreigners, move outside of the city into a province. Not only is it possible that you can find a cheap apartment, but everything else around you is going to be cheaper because they're not catering to tourists. If you want to be in a city center, it's a good possibility that you can find a guest house to live in instead of an apartment. They usually will give you a deal if you're going to stay there for a month or more, and you don't have to pay for a deposit or utilities. Usually there's free Wi-Fi, so that's that. And number 5, again, is for you to just give yourself enough time to look for an apartment. Stay at a hostel, stay at a guest house, stay in an apartment or Airbnb for 5 days to a week so you have enough time so you can compare, make the right decisions. And also, don't get so excited about the first apartment you see because you realize that this apartment will cost so much money from where you come from, because it's most likely that you can find that apartment for even cheaper. But again, this video is for budget travelers, people who just need a bit of a breathing room so so they can grow their business and so they can get their traveling lifestyle started. That is it, guys. That's all I have. If you have any advice for my viewers or for me how to find a great apartment in Chiang Mai, please feel free to comment below. If you want to correct me on something, feel free to comment below. This is a community for us all to share. If you want to like this video, please like it. If you want to share this video, it really helps, guys. Please share it. And if you want to continue to follow my journey on this beautiful game called life, please subscribe. Thank you, guys, from Live, Love, Life, and Travel.